Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. And a lot of webinars start that way, but we mean that. One of the things that we have really enjoyed over these last couple of weeks is seeing how many people and where they're coming from. So please already pile on the comments. Tell us where you're joining us from today. Joining me today is my good friend and colleague, Dave Russell. We are two former analysts, now both VPs of strategy at Veeam. Each week, we are looking at different industry trends and then trying to apply that in the real world. And towards the back of the session, we'll also talk a little bit about how Veeam feels about some of that as well. This week, we are talking about, Dave, what I know is one of your favorite topics, digital transformation.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jason. And to echo Jason's comments, yeah, I love going through. We read through every comment and I love seeing all the different places where you guys are from. And maybe in part to kind of kick that off, thematically, the day today for me is about Rick and Morty, if you're familiar with that semi-inappropriate animated series. So this is my shirt, and this is what I spent $50 on, which is Rick and Morty dipping sauce from McDonald's, which is very difficult to come by, but McDonald's actually surprisingly reissued it for like a day, and people were making a run on them. So I'm going to break this in case of emergency. If this global situation that we're in really looks like it's going to get bad, I don't know what I'm going to dip in here, but something's going to get dipped in this lovely $50 container of hopefully good sauce. But the next thing that I love outside of
something better than a nugget, please.
Yes, probably something different. But Jason's right. Do love digital transformation. Love to hear what you guys are interested in, how you're keeping busy, what you're watching. But if we double click now on what digital transformation is, not to kind of bore you too much, but I just wanted to give you a couple definitions. I mean, we're generally IT people, we're data center people. We don't always think in terms of sort of bigger platitudes of business activities, but here are two very brief definitions of digital transformation, or DX, as it's sometimes known as an abbreviated form. So I'll just read this through because I know the text might be really small on the device you're viewing, but one version of this is digital transformation is the process of using digital technologies to create new or modify existing business processes, culture, and customer experiences to meet changing businesses and market requirements. This reimagining of business in the digital age is digital transformation. Here's a second one for you, and it's pretty similar. Digital transformation is the integration of digital technology into all areas of a business, fundamentally changing how you operate and deliver value to customers. There's also a cultural change that requires organizations to continually challenge the status quo, experiment, and get comfortable with failure. That's an interesting one for those of us that are used to no downtime. So
Yep.
net it out, I just click the next bullet and say, really what is DX or digital transformation? It just all begins and ends with the customer. Anything you can do to help your business drive increased interaction, drive better value to customers. And, in the situation that we're all in today, now more than ever, I think that makes sense, Jason.
Yeah, leave the screen up here for a second because I want to point folks to something that I thought was really interesting when I really started thinking about digital transformation. Look how many times it talks about words like business and process and operation, and contrast that with actually fewer times that it actually mentions technology. Right. I think there's something important in those definitions. So as much as Dave is a digital transformation guy, I am a business continuity disaster recovery guy. And one thing that always used to drive me nuts is when people use those two terms interchangeably. DR is IT centric. Business continuity is business centric. And in fact, when I did my certified business continuity planner cert, of the 10 disciplines of certified business continuity, only 4 of them have to do with technology. I would argue that same thing holds true in digital transformation, that it starts with, you're right, it starts with the customer, but it starts with the business process and then working backwards to what IT do you need in order to accomplish the business process. And that's a very different way than saying, okay, what are we going to upgrade in our data center this year and call that digital transformation?
Yeah, that's a great point. And, you've got some real data to walk us through here, Jason. Let's kick it over to you to tell us, how did we get this data and what does it mean?
Yeah, well, you put two analysts on a project, you got to go run some research. I mean, that's just kind of what you do. And in this particular case, so Veeam has for the last several years contracted with a third-party research firm. So we wanted an unbiased data set. And in this year's data, some of the areas that we added some questions in, since Dave and I, this was our first year to really be part of the project, was we went out to over 1,500 enterprises around the world. Probably pretty much equally distributed between APAC, Europe, and the Americas. All of them were enterprises, 1,000 users and up, many of them, many more, tens of thousands and up. And we asked questions around what were your challenges, what were your goals? And one of the areas we looked at was around digital transformation. And this question I thought was really interesting because digital transformation is such an overused buzzword. So we asked these enterprise decision makers, what does it really mean to you? And why are you going through this journey that we call digital transformation? And Dave, you preach on this quite a bit. How does this unpack for you?
Yeah, I mean, I really like this slide because the top respondent here of the selections for the question, which positive impacts do you believe digital transformation can have within your organization? Number one was transform customer service. And right off the bat, customer right in there goes to the heart of the definitions of digital transformation. And I love the idea of thinking customer centric first. I liked your point or analogy on business continuity, disaster recovery. DR is about the bits. BC or business continuity is about the business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's to your point, it's four, or what did you say? Four, some out of the 10 disciplines were technology.
4 out of 10 have to do with technology, right? And some of the others dealt with culture, right? How do you change the culture of the company month in and month out, year in and year out, so that the business would be more continuous, more durable? And I think that you see the same thing here. If your focus is customer service, your focus is transforming business process, and by the way, everyone's focus is delivering cost savings. But when you think about that customer-centric lens and not starting from what do we have, how do we make it better, but instead start with what do we want? What are we trying to accomplish? And then go back and assess, do we have the right technologies that'll let us do the things for our customers that we want? That's how I see this slide. Does that ring true for you as well, Dave?
Yeah, it does. And I like the second one, which it says transform business operations and processes, which part of transformation implies that it's not going to be an easy journey or without some risk and some potential challenge. And I like the comment that already came in during the stream here from the lovely Gibson. It says, thanks for pointing out failure. Failure is a seed for lessons learned, for growth and transformation. Good stuff. And I would say that's how we all got proficient from a technology perspective. We've all broken things or done things that had side effects, which is a nice way of saying, maybe created more harm than good. Yeah. But you learn, right? You learn experientially. You learn by making mistakes. You get smarter by trying things. And I think when it comes to digital transformation and how those responses laid out, it's a process. You already, I believe, used the word journey, and I think that's really appropriate. There's a technologist named Fred Moore, and he says, digital transformation is like going to the gym. You don't do it once, you do it on a continual basis. It's not a checkbox like, oh, we've implemented digital transformation anymore. To your point, like we've implemented cost reduction or we've implemented security. Security is ongoing forever, as we've talked about in ransomware.
Yeah, in fact, why don't we switch to that next slide, because the next slide actually talks about, where are you on the journey? I thought a couple of things were interesting. You and I just got done saying you never actually arrive, right? Yeah. Whether it's security, whether it's business continuity, whether it's kind of like I've got 3 kids in their upper teens to low 20s, and I can't imagine one of them saying, "And now you are an adult," right? I mean, you never actually finish. that journey, right? And so I was actually surprised by the number of folks on the data slide that said, 23%, 1 out of 4 organizations said that they are mature or fully implemented in their disaster recovery, in their digital transformation journey. I'm much more interested, honestly, in the 52%, the half of organizations that say they're still in process, and even more so the 16% that say just beginning. You can work that all the way back to 8% they're still talking about. Now, I wish they weren't still just talking about it. I wish they were, something was in motion. But it is interesting to find out, even in 2020, as we look at such a pervasive buzzword, that so many organizations are still in flight. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, and I like always looking at, the converse of things, and you look at only 1% said that they haven't started. So the one thing that I like to mention about digital transformation, again, we're all technologists, but I think it's important for whether you're a manager or an admin or however you find your role in the data center, to appreciate that digital transformation is real, meaning there's almost without a doubt that there's some level, if not various different DX or digital transformation initiatives that are already in flight, and no doubt other initiatives that will get updated or put into practice, to try to deal with this situation that we're all in right now. So it is happening, and just as business participants, we should be aware of it. And as data center professionals, there's no doubt. I mean, the word digital says it all. There's no doubt we're going to play a role in
Yep.
this. And so I always like to say, you want to do things consciously, or as our chief technology officer, Danny Allen, likes to say, one of his big phrases is, we should do things with intention, meaning we should decide to go and do something and not just react. Here's the same situation. I think it's important to be aware of digital transformation because it's important to the business. It's important that we support it well, and it's important to understand, that it's going to be an evolution. It's going to be a journey. Really quickly, there's a question that came up, and I'm not even sure that I can answer it appropriately, but I do want to address it. And it's from Connie Santos. She's asked, how can we transform call center processes? And I will apologize right off the bat, Connie. I'll give you some thoughts I have, and maybe Jason, you've got some additional ones. But I would say, even without knowing specifics of your call center, the key really is how you can respond to customers better, whatever better may be. It could be faster, it could be higher quality information, it could be time to resolution is shortened, but any metric. So those types of things were no doubt already in place in the call center. But from a digital transformation perspective, it could then be, well, we're going to get different kinds of systems. We're going to have faster technology for communication. We're going to have access to new information that we can not have to bounce someone from one call or specialist to another. Those types of things come to my mind. Jason, any thoughts?
So anytime I look at a specific type of project, especially when it's something that's verticalized, the first thing I think about is think of all the levers that you could possibly pull. And typically they either are going to be evolutionary or revolutionary, right? And so looking through those can kind of give you some things that you can do on a short-term basis versus things that are longer pull. Evolutionary levers are, there are some things that you just want to do better. So for example, in a call center, there's that human interaction factor. And then there's, what are the technologies that I would put in front of the pane of glass of the customer service representative? What can I do to evolve that? Whether it's graphical, whether it's workflow based, what can I do to can scripts? Those kinds of moments. That's evolutionary improvement. Revolutionary improvement is when folks say, hey, we're going to get rid of the humans and put everything through an automated press one, which, by the way, I hate. I absolutely detest those. And American Airlines is my biggest one that I'm beefing with right now. But anyway, there's concepts of evolutionary, what can we do better? And then there's revolutionary, what new tools are out there that we could brainstorm on and really stretch for? As long as we're on that second part about revolutionary, so Sinchin also had a comment in the thread and gave the example that embracing cloud computing is one example of digital transformation. I want to twist that around a little bit. I would tell you, if you're leveraging cloud computing because you're trying to improve what the infrastructure, which is aging out within the data center. I'd call that IT modernization. If you started with the purpose of, I want to improve my employee experience, I want to have them working from home, certainly in a COVID world, that's a big deal. How do I do that? Oh, okay, well, maybe I get the computing out of the data center because that's a bottleneck. Where would that go? Okay, it goes to the cloud. Either way, you end up with cloud as part of your IT strategy. But the difference is, did you do it from an IT-centric North Star? I think I call that IT modernization, or in another world, I call that disaster recovery. If you did it from a, how do I fix my business process, right? That'd be the business continuity side. That's the digital transformation North Star. So either way, cloud's there, but just be thinking about, did you do it for the business first? If so, that's how I start to think about it as anything in the digital transformation banner.
Awesome. Let's look at the next result that we got. I think this is really interesting as well. This is sort of taking the negative, right? What's preventing you? And, in some regards, maybe not a surprise, meaning, these are pretty typical responses for, I think, for every challenge. The first one's being lack of IT staff or skills or transformational expertise. And then dependency on legacy systems and technology, followed by money, followed by time. Although quite high on the list, Jason, is lack of senior management buy-in. If I just pause on that quickly, the lack of senior management buy-in at 27%, I would almost assert, if people don't buy in, their replacements will be bought in.
Okay, so two things I got to mention on that one. First of all, you're spot on. Remember, by the way, that in this particular survey, the respondents could answer as many of these as they wanted along the way. So when we see, so the numbers don't add up to 100%, right? That's one key point around that. If 27% said lack of senior management buy-in, so easy, that means 1 out of 4 organizations didn't have senior leadership as part of the buy-in for that. I would argue that if you had senior leadership buy-in, you'd have senior leaders saying, what skills does the organization need? You'd have senior leaders going, how much more money do we need? How do we free up time that we need? I mean, everything else arguably comes from senior management, which is one of the reasons why many of the talks that we have here are really designed for that senior leader as part of the conversation to maybe even grease the wheels for what the IT pros are already trying to accomplish down in the trenches. If you put the slide back up, let's flip it around and make it an optimism slide. If these are the things that are slowing you down, then think about, okay, so what skills do you need to accelerate your digital transformation journey along the way? What kind of things do we need to do to remove legacy systems from the picture? This is where we go right back to cloud computing again, right? From a skills perspective, are you enabling your employees? One of the kindest and I think most insightful things that our boss, Danny Allen, said right when COVID came in and locked down, he said, once a week, find some area to do growth, right? Whether it's start going to the gym when you haven't, or read books more often, or do something. But every week you should have a personal growth goal as part of these quarantine times. And I thought, I never would have thought of this as an opportunity to grow. But if I did that, all of a sudden skills and expertise become less. Hopefully it's one of the reasons why folks are listening to this podcast is as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And, we didn't know this when we, instrumented the survey and the responses, but, the sort of lack of IT, staff skill, awareness, et cetera. I'm inserting the word awareness into that first response. That's in part, why we wanted to do this episode, this live stream on digital transformation. Digital transformation isn't something that, we're going to be able to teach in 30 minutes, but it's just important to be aware of the journey, the appreciation of it, really rests with all of us. And a little closer to home, Jason, I loved the second response, of legacy systems being an impediment, in the sense that that's something closer to home, right? That is something that, as data center people, IT geeks, we've been used to wrestling with for some period of time. So the hope would be that as you try to transform your business initiatives,
Yep.
you are doing some things differently Could be cloud computing. It could be any number of things. And, if we shift gears a little bit from a Veeam perspective, want to kind of walk you through where we think we can help
Yeah.
and support whatever your initiatives, may actually be. So if we bring up the next slide.
But before you get into the Veeam speak, I want to just throw a nugget out there. Another industry data point. Most industry analysts will tell you that IT organizations spend between 68 and 82% of their time and their dollars maintaining the status quo.
Running the business.
Very little headroom for doing the kind of stuff that you want.
Yes.
Right. So everything we talk about around IT modernization for the sake of the transformation, it's about if you can get rid of those legacy systems and reduce what you're spending in time and effort on the stuff that's already there, you have more to do with what you want. Anyway, so just take that away for what it's worth. Now let's talk about the Veeam, because in our case, our language is it just works, right? So if you're spending less time on backup, you could do more with it. Dave, we got something to talk about for there, right?
Yeah. If we bring up a graphic here and just walk through this, I'll just build this out. And that was actually a perfect segue, Jason. You think about business, the so-called run, grow, and transform. Run, kind of keep the lights on, to your point about just maintain operational standards. Grow kind of speaks for itself, seek to do a little bit better, a little bit more of whatever goods or services that you're invested in delivering to market. And then transform is the radical. And, you may never get to transform, or you may only get to that point, every decade or so in business. But our goal at Veeam is to, as Jason alluded to, allow you to do the run portion easily. In our world, it all begins with data.
Yep.
We ingest the data, we bring it into the Veeam availability suite. We provide then services that are really all protection based, right? So that's really where Veeam comes into play. We ingest data, we were able to back it up, we were able to replicate it, we're able to deliver it to other locations for long-term retention. From there, we apply management, policy-based management that delivers data services. We leverage an ecosystem of integrations through things like our universal storage API and through our integrations with various automation tools. But it's about policy-based management. It's about automation and orchestration. But here's where we start to now shift a little bit. All of that is initially in an availability context, meaning backup, recovery, replication, and failover. But by virtue of having a good copy of your data and the ability to leverage that, we can then begin to move into DX or digital transformation to unleash the latent capability of data to provide improved customer experiences via reusing data, to enable new products and services, improve customer intimacy. And part of how we do that, just two kind of secret sauce aspects of that, is cloud mobility and portability. I think really the first episode on this, David Hill and I had a discussion on that, where Veeam's format is self-describing and portable, can shift across hypervisors, physical, virtual, or many different clouds. And the second aspect of that is something that Veeam actually pioneered in terms of being able to instantly mount machine images. And now in the latest release, Jason, we can mount data even faster. So take us through what we think of or call data labs and how that fits in here.
Yeah. So, and again, remember the guidance we gave earlier. There's two concepts when you're modernizing any aspect of IT. There's evolution and revolution, right? So everything we're talking about on the left-hand side of this graphic is evolution, which is how do we improve things that we have right now? How do we improve backup? How do we improve visibility? And then there's all the stuff that you want to do. That's the revolution. And to Dave's point, data labs is revolutionary. And the way that works basically is, for years, Dave and I used to watch backup products that said everything worked fine. And then when you tried to recover, nothing came back, right? So in many cases, backup software would just say, well, there's no error on the tape drive, so it must all be there. Right? That's not the same as ensuring that you can recover data. So years ago, we started with this concept of, hey, every night we're going to go ahead and just after the backup's done, we'll bring it online, we'll check it. Well, you can't just bring it online because it would affect the production environment. So we draw a sandbox around the edges, and now it's protected and we can play with it. Does the app start up? Are the files there? That's how you test it. We call that sure backup and sure replica. And what customers started telling us was, hey, do you have to delete that in the morning? Because there's some stuff we'd love to do with that second copy of data. And over time, we called it virtual labs and VVL. And so, but really how it's landed today is around data reuse and what we call data labs, which lets you spin up these complex multi-VM applications in this little box and or expose a single storage volume for whatever you want. But do you want to do DevOps? Do you want to test patches? Do you want to quarantine? All those want-tos, right? Those are the revolutionary, aspirational things that would make your business process better. That's where Data Lab starts. And then we can continue that with the rest of the technologies we use for digital transformation. But that's how that kind of comes together. That's how you get revolutionary in your IT practice.
Well said. Well, as we begin to wrap up, Jason, I want to give a shout out to our product strategy colleagues. This Thursday, they're going to have a next installment of their weekly get together. Really sharp people: David Hill, Anthony Spiteri, Melissa Palmer, and Michael Cade. And also I want to tee up Veeam On. Jason, why don't you take us through when Veeam On is going to be in 2020?
Yeah, so I think we have a graphic for it. So June 17th and 18th, same experience now online. So I've gone to every Veeam On we've ever done. So this year can't be any different. You're going to see sessions from Dave and I. You'll see sessions from the strategy folks that Dave just mentioned. Truly some of the smartest humans I've ever had the honor to work beside. And a whole bunch of others. I think we've got 20 some odd breakouts in the first section, and then we got another 30 some behind it. It's a huge event. Last week we actually would have been in Vegas if it hadn't been for this whole COVID thing. So we're bringing you the same thing except for the alcoholic party. Everything else should be about the same. We are so looking forward to that time of connection and enablement and revolution. So
well said. Well, thank you, everyone. Keep submitting your questions and stay safe, stay positive, and we'll see you on the next stream. Thank you.
Bye.